Hello everyone, my name is Lydia Trejo and I am one of the consultants with Coastline Employee Assistance Program. Thank you so much for your interest. In today's webinar, we will be talking about respect in your workplace and why it's important for you and your company to cultivate a respectful environment. We have learned that a respectful workplace creates productive and engaged employees. However, on the other hand, workplaces where employees feel disrespected typically experience higher levels of turnover, conflict, grievances, low levels of engagement, and of course low levels of attendance and productivity. I want to remind you that this is an interactive and participatory webinar. Please have a pen and paper available as we will be bringing up on the screen the pre-webinar worksheets and we will be reviewing them along the way. Again, thank you for joining us and let's get started. In today's workplace, the rise of disrespectful behaviors in business is a serious problem that has reached epidemic proportions. One study recently found that 60% of employees believe that coworkers' annoying behaviors negatively impact the workplace, and as a result, 40% reported that they are looking for new employment. In fact, it's estimated that employers spend about $300 billion a year dealing with the impact of poor communication, misunderstandings, a lack of accountability, arguments, diminished employee morale, and weak engagement due to lack of courtesy and respect among coworkers. Lack of respect in the workplace is definitely a major issue. A lack of respect, no matter what the base issue is one of the most common causes of struggles in the office. And any conflict, no matter how seemingly small, directly affects the company's bottom line and the overall productivity of your entire team. Most teams name respect among their top 10 values, and it's the missing ingredient to healthy and productive teams. The term respectful workplace can conjure up any number of emotions depending on your perspective and your situation. In today's training, we will be exploring strategies and practices that foster respect and civility in the workplace. The purpose of our training today is to help you define respect and understand how respect affects you and your ability to work effectively. We will also explore respectful workplace behaviors. We will learn respectful communication techniques. We will learn to adopt healthy conflict resolution practices. We will begin to value each other's time and personal property, and we will become aware of disrespectful behaviors in the workplace. Let's begin by understanding how respect affects you and your work. Respect looks different to everyone. It's different to different people. When you think about respect, what does it mean to you? To some of you, respect could feel like a safe and healthy environment, feel like a source of comfort and pride for your organization. It could feel like a sense of equality for all employees and an atmosphere of inclusion and positivity. For others, you may hear respect through appropriate and courteous language and tones, through words and energy of encouragement and appreciation, and through helpful feedback. And others may see respect through positive body language like smiling, eye contact, and an open posture. And through cooperation and healthy environments in relationships between coworkers. Let's take a few seconds to explore your personal experience with respect on your webinar handout. I hope that everyone can see it now. Take a few minutes, in a couple of words, take a look at question number 1. What is your own definition of respect? What does respect mean for you? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it sound like? And how does respect or the lack thereof affect you in your workplace? So you can stop the webinar at this point, take a couple of seconds to review the first 3 questions. What is respect for you? How do you define it? What does it look, feel, and sound like to you? And how does respect or a lack thereof affect you at your work? Like I mentioned, at this point, it might be a wise idea to pause the webinar, and when you're ready, you can return to our PowerPoint presentation. The work environment, we know that affects individuals, and it affects the way individuals relate to one another, and those relationships in turn affect productivity and results. We know that employees have a tendency to perform better when they are treated with respect and feel included. Let's review the negative impacts of working in a disrespectful environment. Workplaces where employees feel disrespected typically experience high levels of stress, of turnover, conflict, grievances, and low levels of engagement, attendance, and productivity. Well, how about the benefits of working in a respectful environment? We have learned that a respectful workplace creates a welcoming environment. It fosters teamwork by improving relationships. It promotes better health and the well-being of employees. It encourages respectful resolution of issues, and it increases productivity and creativity. If you want to create a more respectful workplace, everyone has to do his or her own part. A respectful workplace doesn't just happen, they are built. Each individual has a role to play in creating respectful workplaces. It starts with your actions, with your choice of words, and with your body language. The bottom line is that everyone is responsible for a respectful workplace. While the results of a respectful workplace value the collective business and employees, it requires consistent implementation at the very individual level. A respectful workplace is dynamic. It is not something that a company attains and never has to worry about again. It's something that requires our constant effort and continual improvement to maintain a respectful workplace. It is easier to maintain a respectful workplace than to move from a dysfunctional workplace to one of respect and cohesion. Like all healthy behaviors, being respectful takes practice, and most of us can continue to improve on this throughout time. While an organization becomes a respectful workplace, it's up to every individual to make it a reality. Negativity is contagious and can lead to dysfunction. Let's review a few guidelines that you can adopt in support of a more respectful workplace. We know that harmonious and healthy working relationships begin with respectful behavior. Everyone should be encouraged to treat each other with professionalism and positive reinforcement. If you're a manager or a supervisor, we encourage you to take the lead in demonstrating how to build respectful relationships. If each employee develops an awareness of respectful behaviors and the necessary skills, it is anticipated that employees will serve as role models and that these behaviors will spread in the workplace and beyond. The following are 6 tips to assist you in accomplishing this objective. First, respect and value each other's contributions regardless of status or role in the organization. Second, treat your coworkers with respect, civility, and courtesy. Third, self-monitor the respect that you display in all areas of your communications, including your verbal skills, your body language, and your listening. Fourth, before acting, consider the impact of your words and actions on others. Fifth, have an open and cooperative approach in dealings with coworkers, recognizing and embracing individual differences. And sixth, recognize that differing social and cultural standards may mean that a behavior that is acceptable to some may be perceived as unacceptable or reasonable to others. Let's take a couple of minutes to review exercise number 2 on your worksheet. And I will zoom in for those of you who don't have it in front of you. And let's move to exercise number 2, entitled, Everyone is Responsible for a Respectful Workplace. We have reviewed that we all hold personal responsibility in fostering a respectful work environment. I'll give you the next few minutes to do the second exercise on your handout. It will give you an opportunity to explore the ways in which you are currently contributing to respect in your workplace and what respectful behaviors you can improve on. So take a couple of minutes and list a few of the ways you contribute to your respectful workplace. That's question number 1. Question number 2, how does your team and organization foster a respectful workplace, and what areas do you feel can be improved upon? And third, what are some of the elements of respectful behavior that you yourself can improve upon? At this time, again, feel comfortable pausing the webinar and returning to it whenever you are ready. So what are the foundations of a respectful workplace? Well, we know that a respectful workplace welcomes diversity, addresses conflict early and in a respectful manner. The achievement of a team supersedes the performance of any individual member. We have clear and realistic expectations that are established and employees are treated with respect and creates a cohesiveness of an extended family. A key component of a respectful workplace includes the intolerance of disrespectful, hostile, or bully behavior. Building healthy relationships in the workplace is an individual and team effort. There are many things that you and your organization can do to foster respect. Let's start with building a strong foundation in respectful communication, conflict resolution, valuing others' time and personal property, and respecting the differences. Like in our families, communication plays a very important role in the workplace. Studies have shown that the lack of clear communication is a major factor in every organizational problem. And positive communication is important in the workplace because it fosters strong business relationship and customer service, thereby increasing businesses. It also creates professional, mutual, respectful atmospheres between employees and superiors. And we know that positive communication can also increase confidence and morale. Let's assess the effects of positive versus poor workplace communications on your worksheet and answer the following questions. And now we're moving on to page number 2, and again, I will zoom in. So at this time, again, feel comfortable pausing the webinar, but let's answer the next couple of questions. Have you ever worked in an environment where there was an open, positive workplace communication? And what people, policies, or factors influenced positive communication in your opinion? And did such communication have a positive effect on your productivity and or your attitude? Why or why not? And secondly, have you ever worked in an environment where the opposite was what was expected, where there was poor workplace communication? What did you think made that happen? What people, policies, or factors influenced poor communication? And did such communication have a negative effect on your productivity and or attitude? Why or why not? So take a couple of minutes to review those questions, answer them as best as you feel comfortable doing, and when you're ready, return back to our webinar. So to a large degree, we know that getting your work done involves working with other people. And a big part of working well with other people is communicating effectively. Take a moment to think about the different ways we communicate with one another. We know that we communicate using our words, our bodies, and our facial expressions. Each person is responsible for the success of our own communications. Taking personal responsibility for effective communication means being open-minded and willing to change behavior and communication preferences to communicate those around you. It's not always easy, and in certain situations it can be quite challenging. So how do we communicate respectfully? Well, by using appropriate and professional language first and foremost, by applying active listening skills and making an effort to understand what you hear. Ask questions for clarification before responding. We can also promote positive communication by providing direct and open feedback, by paying attention to nonverbal language, and by avoiding gossip and constant complaining or blaming. Ask yourself, is there one element that you could work on to improve on your communication with your coworkers? Let's take a look at the third question here on our worksheet webinar. And let's see here. Check the skills below that you could work on in order to improve on your communications with coworkers and have a more respectful dialogue. So what of those skills could you improve on? Could you improve on using appropriate language? Could you maybe improve on applying active listening skills? Making that active effort to understand what you hear, to ask questions before you respond. Can you improve on providing direct and open feedback? What about improving on paying attention to your nonverbal language? What is your face saying? What is your body saying to those around you? And can we improve on avoiding gossip, constant complaining, and or blaming? So take a look at that. Again, feel comfortable stopping the webinar if you need to at this point. When you're ready, you can press play again. And we'll move on to slide number 11. Another foundation for building healthy workplace relationships is resolving conflict constructively and respectfully. Anytime people work together, conflict is a part of doing business. Conflict is a normal and natural part of any workplace. We know that conflicts will occur in the workplace, but learning to take responsibility for your actions, regardless of the situation, is important. By learning to constructively resolve conflict, we can turn a potentially destructive situation into an opportunity for creativity and enhanced performance. Arriving at a positive resolution of conflict is always the ultimate goal. In resolving conflict, it is important to make sure that you do the following. That first and foremost, you clearly articulate the causes of the conflict. Openly acknowledge that there will be different perceptions and problems. Secondly, communicate why you want the conflict resolved, reasons to work on conflict, and offer how you want it resolved. Third, address the issues face-to-face. Notes, email correspondence, memos, those are not the most productive way to resolve your differences. Fourth, stick to the issues. In trying to resolve conflict, it is tempting to resort to name-calling or bringing up issues from the past. It is important to address specific behaviors and situations if change is to take place. Fifth, accentuate the positive. Promote cooperation and mutual respect. Disagreeing with respect is one of the most important things that you can do to remain professional in communicating with colleagues. Even if you think your coworker's point is complete madness, keep that to yourself and keep the conversation positive. Sixth, take time out if necessary. If the resolution of a conflict is getting in the way and our emotions interfere before arriving to a productive resolution, take some time out. If this transpires, decide to resume the conversation or the mediation at a later time, at a better time, a time that is designated between you and your counterpart. And lastly, know your triggers and your hot buttons. Take time to understand your own triggers or hot buttons. Knowing what makes you angry and frustrated will enable you to manage your reactions and respond in a more appropriate manner. When you want to be respectful, try to put yourself in someone else's shoes and behave in a way that shows you care. At its heart, being respectful means showing that you value others' perspectives, time, and space. So let's start by valuing each other's time. Being punctual and reliable shows respect for other people's times, and it shows that you're making a special effort to be there for them. Respect other people's efforts by being on time, being prepared, and being enthusiastic. Come to work, to meetings and appointments ready to go. Have your materials in order and complete all the necessary work ahead of time. You'll show respect for others by not wasting their time. If you say you will call someone back by a certain day or time, make every effort to do so. If you need to talk to someone, ask if it's a good time for him or her first. Remember that being sensitive to others' schedules and time limits definitely shows respect. Valuing each other's property is also another way in which we show respect. This includes having boundaries and etiquette of others' space, belongings, and privacy, which brings us to valuing the space of others. Respect the area surrounding your coworkers' desks. Each of you is given a designated area in which to work, and no one should worry about others invading that space. Knock and wait for an answer before entering another person's work area, and keep your distance from the desk when coworkers are on the phone to uphold that sense of privacy even if you can hear their conversation. That brings us to valuing others' belongings. When you're around a coworker's desk, go for an interview or visit a friend in another office, recognize that the other person's desk is very important to them. It's sacred. It is rude to assume that you can place your papers, your briefcase, or your purse on another person's desk. And if you don't want to set your belongings on the floor, ask if the person minds you using a corner of their desk or one of their chairs. If you rest the glass or papers on the desk, carry the papers away and wipe off any damp spots on their desks before you leave. This brings us to another issue of borrowing. Office workers assume that items on their desk belong to them. You cannot assume otherwise and should respect the items on another person's desk. Even though the item may be company property, borrowing a stapler or a pen from a coworker is acceptable only when you ask. Taking a page from a calendar or using a computer at another person's desk is poor form and should not be done unless permission has been granted by your boss or even more preferably by the owner of that desk. Taking personal property from a desk is not only poor etiquette, it is actually considered stealing. Personal information, we know that it can be very difficult to avoid nosy coworkers on the job. So set a good example by not inquiring or making personal remarks about items on anyone's desk. Avoid moving items on another worker's desk or asking if he'd like to teach you how to be more organized. Respect your coworkers' boundaries by not using anything that you see on their desks as an open invitation to snoop into their private lives. They will tell you what they want you to know. Treat people as people with respect. Treat them the same no matter their race, their age, their gender, their religion, etc. And here are some tips on respecting the differences. Be respectful to people who are different from you, even if you don't understand them very well. The differences amongst us is what makes life interesting, and besides, you probably have more in common with people than you know and than you even realize. Even when you really don't see where someone is coming from, be courteous, be civil. You don't have to love everyone you meet, and you certainly don't have to agree with them, but you can still show them respect. Be respectful of people's cultural differences. Be respectful of people with different religious beliefs. Be respectful of people with different politics from you, and be respectful of people on the teams that rival yours, and even the fans of other teams as well. We discussed some ways in which to build and cultivate respect in the workplace. Now let's shift gears a bit and discuss disrespectful behaviors in the workplace and the ways in which they become detrimental to morale, productivity, and retention. Disrespectful behavior has very negative effects in the workplace. Employees who are rude, vulgar, or make condescending remarks to others can significantly diminish office morale. No one wants to feel disrespected or degraded at work, but that is exactly what can happen when an employee is allowed to act without professional boundaries. It is important to recognize and be aware of these behaviors. Awareness means understanding that behaviors left unchecked can escalate into violence at one point or another. Disrespectful behavior can be described as acts which create negative or threatening atmosphere in the workplace. We'll be exploring 3 categories today of negative behaviors: verbal aggression and physical aggression. So let's take a look at this slide here, and it's the incivility continuum. And basically it says that over time, when things are not addressed immediately, they have a tendency to get worse. So basically it says that at the very top we start with negative behavior, and we can see these by seeing rude comments, insensitive actions, unintentional slights, complaining, gossiping, cultural bias, crude jokes, or profanity. That is the very beginning of disrespectful behavior. If we don't address those things right from the beginning, they can escalate. They can then move on to something like verbal aggression, yelling or speaking to one another in very loud voices, making comments that are belittling, making threats or being intimidated towards others, making discriminatory comments, cursing at someone, and even humiliating them. Again, if this is left unchecked, if this is not addressed, it can move on down the continuum towards physical aggression, towards assault and battery, towards now throwing objects, towards violent outbursts, someone hitting the wall or kicking a can, to inappropriate touchment, and even towards harassment. So again, if these behaviors, which start with just simple negative behaviors, are left unaddressed, they can escalate into this continuum of incivility. If there is a behavior that makes you uncomfortable, don't ignore it. Take action. If you or someone you know is concerned about any of these behaviors, contact your supervisor or human resources. It's very important to address these issues so that they don't escalate and cause a greater risk of disruption to your team and or your organization. As we come to the end of our training, I want you to remember that a respectful workplace leads to content employees who are willing to go the extra mile for their employer. A respectful workplace creates a family atmosphere with, sure, some dysfunctional moments, but the overall care for one another overrides the negative tendencies. It is about following the golden rule and embracing colleagues with respect and kindness. A respectful workplace is one where employees choose to remain and transform their job into a career. Likewise, employers choose to provide support and guidance that provide a career pathway for their employees. As we wrap up our webinar, here are the key points that I want you to remember. A respectful workplace creates a welcoming environment and fosters teamwork. A respectful place looks different to different people. Each individual has a role to play in creating a respectful workplace, and a big part of working well with other people is communicating effectively. Lastly, arriving at a positive resolution of conflict is always the ultimate goal. Again, thank you so much for joining today's webinar. If you have any questions or if we can be of any further assistance, please don't hesitate to contact us directly at either of the numbers that you see at the end of this very slide. And remember, Coastline EAP is here for you and for your family members for any additional consultation on legal, financial, child care, elder care referrals, and any other sources of stress that may be affecting you at this point. Thank you so much for joining us, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us if we can be of any assistance. Thank you.